Great, Curtis. Thank you for joining us on Drilling into Crypto.
My pleasure to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you. I wanted to start off by learning more about yourself um, and understanding who Curtis is before he ventured into Bitcoin mining and
Hmm.
joined Compass. And then I'd love to hear about your journey because I believe the journey is usually what makes the person, and the journey is usually what stands out in each company within this space. Everyone has had some sort of an experience within Bitcoin mining and uh, overall Bitcoin industry that is unique within itself, and it fashioned them into the professional that they are today. So
Hmm.
please take it away. Let us know about Curtis and what you do at Compass.
Well, you said a lot there, so I might give you a shorter answer and let you pull some more out of me. But the first thing I want to say, Mo, is like, wow, what at peace you've just made me feel. Like how personal you are. It's no wonder your audience resonates with you. So I'm very happy to dive in, and I think that mindset of who are these people before they found Bitcoin or found Bitcoin mining? That's a really interesting take. Honestly, I want to go right to that. I found Bitcoin, and so I found Bitcoin because we were getting crushed by inflation. I was making more money than I ever thought I would make. When you look back when you were a kid and you project into the future, I was doing better than I thought I was, what that I ever would, Mo. But there came a time when I literally couldn't pay for braces for one of my kids. I had to fill out a financing form to pay for braces, and it really was a light bulb moment for me. Mo, my background was construction, civil engineering, zoning, land use, regulatory approval. I used to be a suit and tie guy in front of city commissions. And in my old role, I had kind of just climbed to the top of a little chiefdom here in the Kansas City area in the Midwest of the U.S. And when I found Bitcoin and recognized that there was better money. I was one of those guys. I couldn't stay in my old fiat role, and because of my background in hard asset infrastructure construction, I gravitated to Bitcoin mining, and at that time, Compass was rocket ship growth, and I got myself out there and caught their attention, and they created a role for me. And I've been through a few promotions now, but I found Bitcoin first, then gravitated to mining. And 4 or 5 years later, look back, couldn't be happier. Thanks for asking. What else do you want to know?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's interesting from construction to Bitcoin mining. Well, actually, it's not that far-fetched. What segment or what focus in construction was it? Like real estate construction? Was it general contracting? Like what kind of construction?
Well, in my earliest role, I ran a real estate and land development division inside a civil engineering firm
Okay.
where we did, residential, commercial, subdivision development. And then that led to vertical integration of, building, strip centers and apartment buildings and multifamily and, 42 lot subdivisions and 12 houses at a time. So that's where I started was, you know, growth and development inside of a civil engineering firm,
Yeah.
finding new jobs and then executing on them.
So you have an engineering background.
I do not. I do not. I have an engineering background. I was a project manager inside a civil engineering firm. However, I'm not a civil engineer. I took grandpa was a bridge builder and uncle's a civil engineer, and I got A's in chemistry and physics. But concrete 101, my very first fundamental civil engineering course, I literally got an F, and Curtis Harris doesn't get Fs, and so I pulled the plug and went to liberal arts and sciences and got a political science degree industry. And one of the things that I learned is that there's a joke, you know how to tell an introverted engineer from an extroverted engineer. Well, an extroverted engineer will look at your shoes. And the joke is that engineers typically aren't the best at publicly representing projects. And so what I developed was a niche at publicly representing projects inside the civil engineering firm. And that led to growth and leadership over a whole division and multiple projects.
It's amazing. Well, that's why I say it's not edge because the the whole crux of Bitcoin mining requires that understanding of land and develop. Uh,
Hmm.
where it all starts.
I did not. The last company that I was gainfully employed at, I'd been there for 10 years, and it was Gordon Energy, a Midwest contractor. I had no idea that when I came into Bitcoin that my whole job was going to become about electricity, but it is. Like I spent all my days chasing kilowatts and electrons. I had no idea. I thought it was going to be construction and zoning, the things that I had like real experience in. But I've learned a lot about electricity in the last 50
Yeah,
months.
same here. I would say most of us, if not all of us, will, getting anybody that's serious about Bitcoin mining had to learn the power business, the energy markets. And that is really exciting stuff to see how
Hmm.
the world runs on energy. I mean, it's an obvious statement, right? But day-to-day lives, when you're running your day-to-day life, you take that energy for granted. And you don't even realize how important every electron you're consuming is, or every watt that you're consuming is, until, at least from as far as I'm speaking for myself here, until I understood Bitcoin mining and got into business and started to understand
Hmm.
the value of energy. And now with how the digital economy runs and the fact that all this energy around the world powers everything we communicate on, everything we transact on, everything we consume content on, it's not something that the average person has as part of their daily consciousness, right? So now that we're in the business, you start to realize the power of power and what you power, you control. And that's a
Hmm.
that I love because it's literally that, like what we do at Permachain, my company, we we look at how to power your money, right? So we look at Bitcoin mining from a treasury perspective. And the beauty is each company within this space has their own vision and mission and their own business model. And ultimately, they're all resonating and complementing one another as an ecosystem, as an industry. I think even the peers in the industry, like Compass Mining and others that are doing similar businesses, we all have something that is unique about our businesses. And what I find unique about Bitcoin mining is that you can power your money, right? And what you power, you control. So for the first time in the history of money and for the first time in the history of capital markets, you can finally control your money by building your own power or decentralized distributed power infrastructure and running your own monetary infrastructure and contributing to a global peer-to-peer system that never before existed. So even to this day, 15 years later, or whatever years has it been since Bitcoin has been launched, it still amazes me. And every day I learn more. I wanted to know your take on
Hmm.
what I just said. I know I say a lot sometimes, but I want to learn your take on that.
Yeah, thank you. Again, you're a great communicator. It's no wonder you're sitting here behind that big beautiful microphone, Mo. So it's interesting to me. I'm going to mention Michael Saylor, and then I'm gonna lead to energy poverty in Africa. Okay. Michael Saylor was a big part of my orange pilling journey. It was his melting ice cube explanation of the dollar that helped me conceptualize that the dollar was broken money and that I had to exit that. Okay, so that wasn't just I heard it one time. Hundreds of hours of research and podcast and reading, like deeply invested, as one would do before he like disrupts his life and goes to work in Bitcoin, right? And then so very interesting to see that this voice, Michael Saylor, that I had already built trust and ownership over, and now I'm working in Bitcoin mining. Michael Saylor, he evolves and he becomes more educated about the power of energy and that Bitcoin is digital energy and that you all of transactive energy. I think of a close friend of mine, Austin Mitchell. He runs a company called Sonoda. They spoke at MicroStrategy's, Bitcoin for conference or Bitcoin for corporations, really just throwing out a fundamental like layer of transactive energy. They created a solution where you can pay for electricity in real time, and that's never been done before. And you can do so over the Bitcoin network, and just the difference that that can make. But what? So Michael Saylor evolved, Mo, but I evolved also. And what happened to me was really unexpected. Is that hopefully this is natural for any audience to understand, but I was faced from a fear and scarcity mindset my whole life. It's toiling for resources so that I could provide for my family and being concerned about what if, and fear and scarcity. But something about Bitcoin and low time preference and recognizing that we've already won. Now we just have to have patience. There is an abundance mindset that exists just on the other side of fear and scarcity. But boy, is that a tough thing to get over. And Mo, hopefully you can see me and hear me. I still have fear, worried about scarcity, but I know that energy abundance is actually what leads to human flourishing. And I've discovered that, and that's been an evolution in myself. I never realized the contribution that electricity made to people's lives. Just everything that you shared, how much we take for granted these electrons, and whether it's gas in a car or the refrigerator. Exactly.
I guess
Exactly. So, hmm,
because I can relate.
it say more.
No, because I can relate. That's why I'm
Yeah.
saying you've beautifully laid out transition from fear and scarcity to abundance. Majority of people
Hmm.
live that life every day, and sometimes we're not intelligent enough to feel other people's emotions and what's happening around us. Everyone's feeling, that fear and scarcity within when they're fully relying on single fiat system. Uh, but then you get that bridge that allows you to transition between fiat and the digital economy that allows you to control assets, control your money, control your, at least to a certain extent, your financial destiny, right? So that's where an open mind is required. People like listen to people like yourself and people within the industry on what exists there, and to realize that there is an exit strategy, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's Bitcoin is definitely my family's exit strategy. We lived on up until last November, so almost a year now. We lived on a small family farm in Kansas. My wife raised miniature pigs, and we have 5 kids, and it was a very wholesome life. But my equity was trapped inside of a old farmhouse that wasn't going to grow at the value of Bitcoin. And late last year we moved out, and then we remodeled our house a little, put it on the market, and then we're ultimately in May able to sell our house and deploy all of our equity into Bitcoin. And you talk about unlearning something, or evolving, like the to go from everything's about home ownership for stability to I'm actually much better off with sats and a self-custody wallet than I am with equity in a home that's depreciating.
Yeah, that I agree. Uh, I've never been a homeowner myself, but I feel at peace now that I know what homeowners go through because members
Hmm.
of my family that have been homeowners, and it's a bit of a it's I'm not that motivated to become a homeowner and own, real estate after finding Bitcoin and realizing that, if it's in order to um, preserve capital and get future upside, I would much rather invest in Bitcoin. And as you said, stack sats. Um, that's something that I
It's a, it's a new definition, and not new, like 15 years, like you mentioned, right? But it's a new definition of property, right? It's digital property, and so in the past, you went property meant the house, but not anymore.
ultimately, you don't, I mean, you miss a few tax payments and there goes your home.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm oversimplifying it, but we've seen that before with people that we know that, lost their homes because they missed tax payment.
And what happens if there's a system collapse? You are not able to leave with your home.
That's another thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of losing my voice here. Excuse me for that.
I don't know. I think you should create a filter. Your voice is coming through to me. You have a natural soothing voice. I've said it 3 times now. It's no
Appreciate
wonder
it.
your audience tunes into you.
God, thank you. Um, yeah, I love that background. It's amazing. You got a nice wall there with the frames up top. You took
Hmm.
the to make it orange. That's amazing. Uh, shows your commitment.
Thank you. Uh, it it means a lot to me. We mentioned selling my house. I had a different home office environment, and I do, record some content and, on a lot of calls. And I had put a lot of effort into building a background.
Yeah,
Um, and when we moved, I had changed, Mo. I had evolved. It seemed unnatural to just like transport that old background and try to make it look like a new space. So, what you're seeing behind me is only about 3 months old. We were in this house for about, 8 months before I dove in. And like any Bitcoiner, I just want to be signal. It's like high signal, no noise.
yeah, yeah. Focus on fundamentals and stay away from the noise. Uh,
Yeah.
I want to learn more about
I've
what. Yeah,
over my right shoulder back here, I've got a bunch of conference badges. One of my earliest roles at Compass was, um, Curtis, we want you to be at so many events that it looks like compasses at everything. And that matched my personality so well. When I was discovering Bitcoin, I was traveling to go to meetups. The first meetup I went to, I flew to Phoenix to see Max
the
Kaiser. I
energize.
don't know if you know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy. And so the idea of I now get to go publicly represent, this massive Bitcoin mining company. Uh, like the pleasure was all mine. The roles changed. I don't go to as many events as I used to, but those conference badges were earned, Mo.
No, I can understand. I resonate with that. Um, People don't understand waking up in the morning and being energized, excited to do what you're going to do. That's one of the things that I love about Bitcoin. It showed us a new world. It gave people new hope. And I'm one of the peoples like you that, you know, I had fear of the scarcity. And I also experienced Bitcoin firsthand between 2019 and 21 when I owned a few coins and I had to live off of those coins for a good part of a year when I had my firstborn. And it was a tough time, no income, no job, but a few coins. And those sats kept me
And
going.
then volatility. Yeah,
Volatility, but luckily for me, 21 was an amazing year for Bitcoin, right? And I was living
good
off,
point.
I was literally living off of the few coins that I had because they kept appreciating in value. And
Hmm.
until I finally landed a gig and got some income again. But you go through these struggles in life when you're transitioning. And luckily, I had Bitcoin to support my family. So, this is not something I take lightly. People need to understand the appreciation.
It's not theory for you. That's you
That
lived that.
exactly.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's when I
Yeah.
realized
I
what it is, right? An inflationary asset that is a hedge.
I don't know when you're like what it is, what I felt there is like what it is. It's freedom and protection for me and my family. Oh, so well said. I live in Kansas, and so Kansas is a natural gas producer in the United States. Of course, Texas is probably the largest natural gas producer, but um, you know, Kansas pumps out some gas, and I had a background in politics as well. I didn't mention it, but I managed a lot of political campaigns. It was part of that, being a city commission guy. I was good at that. So I had in my past, Mo, I had cold called thousands of Kansas farmers to give them political information, right? Working for my candidate or my project. So I'm like, I'm all hustle. First light bulb was that I could go around knocking on farmers' doors that had, they've got a wellhead on their property, and hey, like, listen, let's take your flared gas and turn it into Bitcoin. I am thankful that Compass had a role for me. You talked about landing a role versus the work it takes to, build and invent your own. I was pulled to Compass. It's we now. At the time, it was them, right? I was happy to join. I think I was employee number 72. We pioneered a business model, Mo, that you might be familiar with. Is at that time, as ASICs had evolved, it was incredibly difficult for an individual, just a dad or a business owner or a mom or a nurse, right? It was difficult for an individual to get access to a high quality miner. They were difficult to purchase. There was, internet scams, tough getting things shipped from China. Would Bitmain sell to you directly? So machine access was difficult. But then if you plug them in at home, they were hot, they were loud, it's tough to stay married. And they also used a lot of electricity, and at high residential rates, it might not make the most sense. And so solving machine access, then we were also able to aggregate retail demand into large institutional facilities where those customers were able to get access to lower energy rates, and then somebody else housed the machine. They didn't have to deal with the heat or the noise. So there's been a lot of follow on since then, but Compass Mining pioneered that business model of buy and host. You could buy an ASIC from us, we could send it to your house, or we could deploy it in one of our facilities. And that is when you go from Bitcoin to Bitcoin mining and you make that jump and you start to understand that you can dollar cost average through a kilowatt hour, or that Bitcoin mining creates non KYC sats, and perhaps that's valuable to you if you're afraid your government's overreaching. When you start to look at Bitcoin mining and the fact that over a course of a 4 to 5 year period, it generally produces the lowest marginal cost to acquire Bitcoin, like it was stack, 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 like uh, exploding into this role at Compass Mining felt so much more natural to me than going out and calling on Kansas farmers to try to build natural gas. But I can't get away from it. I'm excited to hear. I understand you've got lots of projects going on, globally, but maybe some affinity for Alberta. I've got a lot of love for Alberta and natural gas there. So would you tell me, when you work in Bitcoin mining, are you primarily working in natural gas sites, or what's that look like for you?
No, I ventured into the energy business from a Bitcoin mining perspective because I when I got my eureka moment that Bitcoin mining requires you know reliable energy infrastructure. Did some research and realized that we in Canada have one of the world's largest gas reserves, right? And, Alberta, being a deregulated energy market, somewhat like Texas, was flourishing in behind the fence or off grid power generation deployments, right? So there was a lot of uh, there was that ability for private investors to go into the province and build their own power plants or power generation facility off grid. And during that time, we were hearing about certain provinces in Canada banning Bitcoin mining or stopping to give Bitcoin miners any extra power, etc. So we decided to go to Alberta, but and start to work with the energy producers there to help them monetize their stranded, underutilized, or wasted natural gas resources. And during COVID is when we actually launched and, and deployed on aggregate, like at that time, 5 megawatts of stranded Bitcoin mining or remote Bitcoin mining stranded gas sites. And it was a combination of our affiliate or our sister company, which is an oil and gas company, and Permian James retail clients, similar to what Compass was. But then 2022, the market crashed, so we had to re-strategize our approach to this business model, because it's not as simple as being at a facility that has reliable power from the grid or reliable power from a reliable independent power producer, right? You're building it yourself. So you have some costs that are fixed and certain hard assets that need to be maintained. And the operational complexity that comes with oil and gas and power generation combined, let alone Bitcoin mining added to the value chain. So yeah, I learned the energy business over the last 5 years with a great team that I work with in Alberta. And, you know, we now have access to a lot of natural gas resources from energy producers that are keen to work with miners. But, you know, now fast forward 5 years later, you need to come up with a model that works for everyone in this scenario. And the gas producers need to see some of that upside in order to be incentivized to give you reliable operations on the gas. But also, it is just morally right to benefit the communities in those areas in terms of monetizing that natural resources means you're consuming or exploiting other people's natural wealth if you are not giving back to the community through the gas operators and the tax system and community regulations and compliance, because you have to work with the community at a certain extent. But I think through the gas operators, you can have that circular economy that allows energy, power, Bitcoin to be a value chain or a digital energy value chain that allows you to now allow communities to build their own, to grow their own natural wealth. And that resonates perfectly with indigenous communities, for example, that have natural resources that cannot be produced or cannot be commercially viable because there are no ways to transport this energy. So we focus purely on monetizing energy now versus focusing on servicing Bitcoin miners. Because once you have the energy, then Bitcoin miners are working with a partner that can deliver. So if we don't have the energy intact, we can't really deliver. And that's where I see Compass Mining as a great complementary or as a great addition to this ecosystem, because you come with the large retail base. You've given people access to, or you've nearly eliminated the barriers to entry to Bitcoin mining. And you have that large base of people that could support communities to build natural wealth by, I don't know if the word exploiting is right, but by properly exploiting or responsibly producing and consuming and monetizing people's natural, communities' natural resources. You come with that